Okay, hey, sorry about that, everybody. Man, it's technology. Me and StreamYard. Like, I triple check this stuff. I go through and do this. Um, man, I'm so sorry. If you've actually rejoined, can you actually drop in the chat if you were able to hear me? I had to restart my computer. So I was installing some updates on my computer and it just did not want to function after that. And I had to do like multiple restarts and multiple things around that. So if you're on the stream right now, if you're on the live, just drop in the chat if you can hear me. I had to restart my computer and I had to get some updates installed in there as well too. So man, it's like you prep this, you do it so much, and you have it already. Sometimes another thing that I figured out with these too is like if you go from like, and I don't know, like for my technology people out there that did that already happen? For my technology people that it's sometimes I see like if you jump from like a Google Meet to like a Zoom to like if you jump from like a Google Meet to a Zoom to like a Teams meeting, one thing that I found is like some of those apps just like won't let go of your mic and camera. Google Meet, like when I go, sometimes if I go from like a Zoom to like a Google Meet meeting, it's like I can't even like have my video on the Google Meet because like the Zoom has taken the camera. It's like you got these apps, right? Hub Clifford, thank you. Ash, thank you. Appreciate it. Sorry about the technical difficulty. I had to go back and restart my computer and some apps that were not want to let go of my mic and my audio, but thank you guys for joining. Part of what I talked about before is, this episode, we're going to be talking about the three sales skills that every fractional CFO needs. And I appreciate everybody from joining for this Fresh CFO Friday. Like I was talking about before, I hope your week is going well. Mine is going really good. The weather has been very, very awesome here in McCoursville, Indiana. Like we've been seeing like nice sunny days. You're starting to see people outside. I was actually on a meeting with somebody, and they were like, "Yeah," they were from the Midwest as well too. They were in Chicago, and they were saying, "Yeah, I feel like I'm coming back to life." I was like, "Geez, man, it's April, man. It's 4 months into it. Like, what the last 3 months look like?" But appreciate you guys being here. Like I said, the topic today, the three skills that every fractional CFO needs. One of the cool things that I really see a lot of fractional CFOs and particularly me in building Fresh FP&A is that you wear multiple different hats, right? When you're building a business, a fractional CFO business, like for me, I'm the CEO of Fresh FP&A, so like I'm helping guide the vision, the strategy, where we're going, what resources we need, what markets we're going to go after. Like you're wearing that hat, but then also I get the opportunity with also some of my other fractional teammates that I have on the team helping support America's putting on that CFO hat, right? And typically, one of the things that a lot of CFOs have is like you have to be able to sell your business, right? Like, and that's uncomfortable for a lot of finance people, right? Because naturally, like, I don't like to be like stereotyped, right? I don't like to say, hey, like, because I think there's a lot of cool, fresh CFOs and a lot of cool people that are in finance, right? But typically, when you think about the CFO, the office of the finance organization, the office of the CFO, they're traditionally like, they're very introverted. They're over in their, we're very meticulous, we're detail oriented. And accent a introvert, detail oriented process number person to actually be more sales focused, I think is a big stretch. So part of what I want to give everybody today is what are those three skills that you need to have, right? The first one is communication. Like I think like whether you're a fractional CFO, whether you're in finance, whether you're in FP&A, whether you're in accounting, this to me is probably one of the most important skill sets to have is communication, right? And having the opportunity working with a lot of different high growth businesses and a lot of great salespeople, they were always great communicators. right? Like being able to communicate the importance, the value to multiple different audiences, right? As a fractional CFO, you're not only working with your client, you're working with your clients, you're working probably with their external partners, their bankers, maybe their accounting people, maybe their lawyers. You're going to be having a lot of different communications with a lot of different stakeholders. So it's like really, 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 really important as that strategic CFO, to make sure you have that great communication skills, both inside the business, right? Like one of the most important ways is speaking the business language, right? I have an opportunity to talk with a lot of different fractional CFOs, and just always in my career, right? When you're sitting across from that client, that CEO, that founder, that entrepreneur, that business owner, you want to be speaking their language, right? The last thing you want to do is start having that communication with that CEO, be very tactically oriented, right? You're talking about debits and credits and how you miss an accrual. I'm not saying that stuff's not important, but you have to know your audience. I think that's one of the most important things for fractional CFOs around having those sales skills is like you got to know the audience. For example, if you're sitting across from a banker and maybe you're working with your client to get some extended lines of credit. That way they have more of a safety net from a cash facility perspective, or you're looking to increase like treasury operations, right? Got to know your audience. You got to speak that language. And I think one of the drawbacks that I see a lot of fractional CFOs make is like they try to keep that same communication across a lot of different audiences that they're talking with, right? Like when you're talking with the CEO, that communication needs to be different. When you're talking with bankers, that communication needs to be different. When you're talking with accounting partners, that communication needs to be different. And being able to like adapt real time, right? Real time in those conversations, I think is a huge flex, and really important for fractional CFOs to have. And not just for fractional CFOs, I think it's also important for finance people, right? Like when you think about the world that we're in right now, where we need to move away from being less of the calculators and more of the communicators, right? Like that's the upskill, right? Like coming in and reporting to your business, some changes that you've made in IFRS 16 around lease accounting or IFRS 15, and you're trying to communicate that to a CEO or a CRO because IFRS 15 or ASC 606 is going to be affecting probably the sales organization the most, right? And if you come in that conversation like, hey, here's what the pronouncement is, and blah blah. You're gonna lose them, right? So I think the biggest practical takeaway for fractional CFOs around communication: know your audience, be adaptable, and make sure you're communicating and speaking the language that they understand. Meet that external, internal, that business partner, that CEO. Meet them where they are. That's skill number one. Skill number two is something I like to call turning pain into productivity, right? One of the things that I think we do really well at Fresh FP&A is, we know the core set of pains that a lot of high growth businesses are facing, right? Those core, they don't have the right people. They're involved in these manual processes. They don't have a seat at the table from a partnership perspective. They're not leveraging the best in class platforms and technologies. They're not driving a culture of high performance, and they don't have the vision, strategy, tactics, metric, and milestone around profit optimization, right? So, a lot of those pains I've learned throughout my career, my team has learned. They built high growth organizations. I've built high growth finance organizations. And I think this is a really critical one because a lot of people, a lot of fractional CFOs, a lot of finance professionals, they try to have they have a solution and they're going to go find a problem. That's like the worst. That's like the worst position to be in, right? Like you're so excited, you're like, I got the solution. I got the solution. Don't be the solution finding the problem or the pain. Understand the pain and then translate that to productivity, right? From a fractional CFO perspective, that is incredibly value to you. How are you able, to work with the client? They have a pain, and this pain can live inside and outside the finance organization, right? This to me is a key differentiator when you're working with a strategic fractional CFO and you're working with a more tactically oriented fractional CFO, right? And both of them have their, I think their use cases, right? I typically think like a more tactical CFO is going to be more of a controller that's trying to upsell fractional CFO services, which you see a lot of people do that. And, I think that's a viable option. But also, as well, too, like you got to be able to translate that to productivity. How are you intimately knowing your client's pain and providing solutions to make them more productive or more efficient, right? That's that pain to productivity framework, right? And a lot of times where I see a lot of fractional CFO and a lot of entrepreneurs for that case, right, is they do it the other way around, right? They have these solutions and their solution trying to find a pain and find a problem, right? That's a very, very like you're trying to go find. It's like you're gonna try to go find a market versus like I know the 6 to 7 pains and I know the solutions that we solve those pains and I know how we turn those pains into productivity, right? And that's inside and outside. And I think another key transition in part of that is turning pain to partnership, right? One of the cool things I love in like working with our clients across the globe is like I'm not just I me and my team are not just positioning ourselves as like the finance business just a finance leader. Like we're the ones that are helping be business. We're helping the business solve business problems, right? Finance is a core expertise that we have, but a lot of our clients look towards us to say, "Hey, I know when I talk to Chris and I know when I talk to his team that they are business people that are going to help me solve business problems," right? So I think another element of that skill that you need to have, and I've learned this from salespeople and seeing them, is like they're great in connecting with different partners, right? Like I have a pain, like for example, your client may have a pain where they're like, "Hey, our contracts are all over the place," right? Like the language is different, the payment terms are different, the wording is different. We have, warrants in this one. We don't have warrants in that one. We have different confidentiality. Like it's all over the place, right? And what that does is create a difficult situation, maybe from revenue recognition perspective or your cash flow, because some contracts you have monthly, some you have quarterly, some you have paid by credit. You're all over the place, right? And being able to say, okay, like I can go connect you with a great legal partner that we work with at Fresh FP&A that can help standardize your contracts, make sure you have the right language, make sure you have a standard set of contractual contracts that you have for your customers, right? You turn that pain, and that may not be like me, like all the contracts I've read tremendous amount of contracts, right? But I know what I'm not good at, right? And I'm not a lawyer, right? I'm not classically trained. I didn't go do like I don't know how many years of schooling it was, but taking that pain of productivity as a fractional CFO, you can take that pain to partnership, right? So in that fact pattern, right, one of the great things that we're doing is like, hey, I know a great legal partner that I've worked with. They can help you with this. They can help standardize the contracts, make sure you have the right language, make sure you're covering yourself from a legal perspective, and make sure that contract is standardized, simple, and easy to understand, right? Again, that's a business pain, right? That necessarily fits inside the finance organization. Typically, you have legal part of that responsibility, right? But now you're a business partner that the client can come to solve a business pain, right? That's one of the key pieces of that from pain to productivity. It's not just looking at it from inside the finance organization. When you're really able to leverage that partnership outside the finance organization and turn that pain to partnership, or turn that productivity even with technology, right? That's another awesome avenue to have with partnerships around like technology to bring in that platform element. That's super key as well. And that's one thing that I've seen a lot of great salespeople do is they intimately and deeply, and you see a lot of the organizations, right? A lot of the great business models that are out there and the great businesses, like they intimately and deeply know the pain of the target customer or client or prospect that they're working with, and they provide those solutions versus the other way around. Don't be a solution looking for a pain or a problem. That's like looking for a needle in a haystack and you're in an ocean, right? There's no hay out there, right? So the third skill, sales skill that I think every fractional CFO needs is you need to persuasive. Like you need to be persuasive. And this takes me back to in building high performance finance organizations, right? And one of the things, primarily in the thought leadership that I do, right? Like I've been doing thought leadership conferences, webinars, traveling all over the world for almost the last 10 years now and doing that. And one thing that I've always seen, like, you get that person on stage and there's just no passion in what they're talking about, right? And I've always looked at that from a sales perspective, and like in sales cycles with people, it's like, if you're not passionate about what you're talking about, if you're not passionate about your fractional CFO business, if you're not passionate about the solutions and pains that you solve, if you're not passionate about your team, right? If you're not passionate about the work that you do and the quality that you're going to bring to your client, why would anybody else be? Like, I've learned, I've seen that, and we've all been that play. And I'm not throwing shade at people, right? But like, you get that person on stage or they're presenting, and there's just like, it's just like, oh man, this is gonna be rough to get through. And I think you need to have that persuasive aspect in building your business, right? But one of the key stumbling blocks I think a lot of fractional CFO have, do not, let me repeat, do not oversell yourself, right? I learned this, right? I learned this. I have some great mentors. One guy, he's been a fractional CFO and built a fractional CFO business for the last 30 plus odd years. He's a great guy. Met him down in Atlanta, and this is the first advice he told me, right? He's like, Chris, know when to shut up and listen, and know when to stop overselling, right? Like, and I was like, that was powerful, man, because too many times, like, you come into that, you're super excited, right? You got your team, and you're just like, sometimes don't oversell. Like, just listen. Sit there, listen. Part of being in the process is like asking those curiosity and engaging kind of questions. But don't oversell and when you're trying to be too persuasive in that conversation, right? Because sometimes we all know it, right? It's like that used car salesman kind of place, right? You don't want to feel in that way. And plus, being persuasive is all part of building that rapport and trust, right? But it's building it from an authentic perspective, right? When you look at some of the greatest salespeople that, Jordan Belfort comes to mind of Wolf of Wall Street, right? Like super charismatic, crazy dude, but he was very persuasive in his sales cycle, right? Like, he was persuasive, but not to that point where, you felt sleazy around it, right? That's that when you're crossing into that point of overselling, but be confident, but also know when it's like, all right, this is the moment. Like, I got it. I just need to sit back and listen. I need to sit back and confirm. Maybe I need to ask a clarifying question, but I'm going to speak with passion, and my passion in terms of the team that we support, the pains that we solve, and the value that we're going to bring to your business. Those are going to be the selling points, right? I think that's so important as you're developing your value proposition and you're selling your business, right? Like, and as I talked about earlier, this is such a different, it's a different flex, it's a different muscle that you have to flex when you're like in that sales, and you can deliver, right? I'm confident to all those fractional CFOs that are going to look at this, or all those people that want to be in the fractional CFO business. You're going to look at it and say, yeah, I'm confident in what we can do, but how do I translate that? How do I translate that to value to a client, right? That's where that persuasiveness comes in, right? That's where that passion to speak, that's where that passion of the problems and the solutions you're going to solve, but it's balanced, right? Know, like my mentor told me, know when to just shut up and not sell, right? I think that's super important. And along with that too, in being persuasive in that kind of skill, is listening too, right? I cannot devalue enough. I can't like invalue enough the importance of listening during a prospecting call or to your clients, right? Like, I have my notebook. My notebook is always open. I always sit there. Every call that I'm on, I'm sitting there taking notes. I'm identifying key things. I'm seeking clarification, right? Make sure you're always doing it. I think that in any sales cycle, and some of the greatest salespeople that I've had the opportunity to work with, they're great listeners. Great listeners. Great. And it's not like every time you have something that they have an answer to every question. right? I think that's another thing that just gives me like anytime I ask a question and I'm sitting across from somebody and they have a answer for every question that I ask, I'm like, this kind of feels like really, everything. Like great fractional CFOs. And sometimes I sit on prospect calls and I'm like, hey, look, I don't have the answer to that. I don't know the answer, but I'm gonna take that. Me and my team are gonna figure it out and we'll come back to you with a proactive and clear response to that, right? And that's powerful. So to me, I think like recapping, those are really like the three, I would say, top skills that every fractional CFO needs. The first one, great communication skills. I think this is just across the board, right? Like calculation skills or table stakes, being a great communicator inside, outside, externally with your client, with their stakeholders, with their partners, making sure you're able to adapt that communication. Hugely important for every fractional CFO. The second one, pain to productivity, right? How are you able to intimately know those pains, turn that into productivity inside and outside the finance organization? Establish yourself as a value added business partner to solve business problems, right? Finance being one of those, but I think when you're positioning yourself and your value that way, man, it is so much opportunity for you to create value inside and outside the finance organization. And then the third one, persuasiveness skills, right? You got to be persuasive. You got to be passionate. I would say persuasive and passionate about the products, about the people that you serve, right? You got to have that passion toward your solutions, to the value that you're going to bring, right? But also don't oversell, right? Know in that moment where it's just like, okay, I got it enough. Appreciate I don't have to continue to oversell our capacity and our experts and our solutions, right? I'm confident, I'm passionate in what we do. So I think if you work on and then my advice to everybody is like have that opportunity in your next prospect call, right? How are you setting up to make sure you're communicating effectively, right? How are you being an active listener? The best way that I've learned this is just repetition, right? A lot of it comes from my professional career and leading high growth leading finance organization at high growth businesses. So having that background, but definitely in building fresh FP&A, having a lot of those repetition and prospects and kind of conversations. I think another good thing that I've been able to leverage around these skills is like working with other fractional chief sales officers, chief revenue officers, and like being able to get their insights on it too is like, hey man, how are some things that you've seen successful in terms of like solutioning, or how are you finding you're at an opportunity where you're not overselling? I think there's so much transferable that knowledge that you can learn from those other fractional resources that can get you right up to speed and get you making an impact in your fractional CFO business. So, thank you, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this Fresh CFO Fridays. We're going to take off next week. Next week, I'm going to be at the World Finance Forum at their conference in Fort Lauderdale. And Friday, I'm actually, for one of the days, I'm actually taking the day off because I'm going to be in Florida. So, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you like this, make sure to tune in to all Fresh CFO Fridays. We do them from 12 to 12:30, 12:45. That's an opportunity for you to learn more about how to empower, equip, and enable yourself as a fractional CFO, finance professional, FP&A professional, or CFO professional. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube page, and we'll that way you don't miss any future content. And as I always end every Fresh CFO Friday, keep pushing, never settle, and the best is yet to come. Let's get it. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy your Friday.